Toyota Crown remains unchanged for 2026. It's a carryover model, but it's a weirdly positioned Toyota because it's not like every other Toyota. It's certainly upscale, but it's not a Lexus, so it kind of sits in between the two, kind of like Mazda's position themselves, that premium brand. So let's dig into the 2026 Toyota Crown and go through the perks, quirks, and irks, and the competition and the pricing, and see exactly where this sits and which of the Toyota Crown sedans is right for you. Let's start off with some baseline numbers for the 2026 Crown Platinum. So here it's a 2.4 liter turbocharged 4-cylinder, 340 horsepower, 332 pound-feet of torque, 6-speed automatic all-wheel drive with rear-wheel steering. Now, if you take the Limited instead of the Platinum, you get a different engine. That's a 2.5 liter 4-cylinder engine, 236 horsepower, and it's through an eCVT. You still get standard all-wheel drive, but there is no 4-wheel steering here. And on the fuel consumption side, the lower output engine gives you a combined fuel consumption rating of 5.7 liters per 100 kilometers. And if you opt for this with a 2.4 liter turbo, that jumps up all the way to 7.8. So it's a 1.9 liter per 100 kilometer difference. And in dollars and cents, Natural Resources Canada says on average, you will spend $651 more for the top trim higher output than the lower trim. When you're deciding between the two, one thing to keep in mind is, do you want all that extra power here? Again, 236 horsepower on the low output, 340 on the high, or do you need the higher output? Starting off with the perk side of things, this is not an SUV, it's not a crossover, but it doesn't feel like a sedan when you get into it. It still has that low presence from the driver's seat, but I find it's more of a slide in to get into the Crown as opposed to a fall in like many other sedans have. And the benefit of that is, in addition to not falling into the driver's seat, you're also not yanking yourself or pulling yourself up and out. So it's definitely got the ingress egress side figured out very nicely. Another benefit for the Platinum is what I'd mentioned earlier, is standard rear wheel steering. And maybe you're in a condo, or maybe you're doing a lot of parking in a heavy urbanized area, and you know that extra couple of degrees of maneuverability can come in handy. On the seats side of things, they're extremely comfortable and they're heated and ventilated up front, and the rear seats for the outboard positions are heated as well. So a lot of standard features, a lot of value jammed in here in the Toyota Crown. You also get these nicely filled out wheel arches, which just give it a very commanding presence. And I know that design is very subjective, and I don't mention a lot of it. Even with the 19s, they look really full, and they just give it a nice higher end look. Both versions of the Crown for 2026 get the Toyota Safety Sense 3.0. Pretty standard stuff, and Toyota's been doing standard safety quite well for quite some time. You get an 11-speaker JBL audio system on this top trim. Yes, it's a perk because it sounds excellent. And just going off track for a moment, I wish they put a Mark Levinson audio system in. I know why they didn't, because Mark Levinson is a very upscale premium brand, and you don't want to water that down by putting it in a Toyota, even though this is a higher end Toyota. There's a bit of a weird mix here. But if you do opt for the Platinum trim, know that the audio system sounds excellent. You get 5 USB ports, and more important than that, physical HVAC controls. And when the Crown first came out, and I'd first heard about it, I'm confident, 9.9 confident meters out of 10, that they're gonna throw the HVAC system on the screen. The Crown has a long, storied history, and it's the upmarket Toyota, but here we are with all physical controls. It's a rarity to see in something so upscale, and definitely fills up that perk column for me. And to wrap up the perk side of things, the Crown drives exceptionally well, and it's almost Lexus territory. While I find Lexus has a bit of a firmer suspension, a little firmer on the steering side, and it's not loose here and it's not light, but there's a really strong balance between the two. And yes, you have to put a small bit of heft in when you're turning the wheel. That leans toward the heavier side. But for little micro adjustments that you make in your everyday driving, it's effortless to do. And with the higher output engine, there is a lot of get up and go here. Again, over 300 horsepower, over 300 pound-feet of torque, and it moves. And yes, I want to come back to the maneuverability thanks to that rear wheel steering. But I've driven the Crown without rear wheel steering, and it does just fine. There's no problems or issues with it. But if you do opt for the higher trim, you get that little extra bit of convenience. Even if that rear wheel steering still has you guessing by a couple of inches on tighter parking spots, you get a 360 cam here, so you're definitely all set for sight lines and visibility and knowing exactly where your inputs will result in for the Toyota Crown. Onto the Quirks, and the long panel joining the infotainment and the instrument cluster are one nice straight line. There's a cut in the middle to split the two, but the instrument cluster is recessed quite a bit, and it's pushed back maybe 2.5, 3.5 inches, and the instrument cluster still does what it's supposed to, which is give you a clear sight line and clear information as to the things that you need. But just taking a first, second, third look at it, I'm like, well, that's a little on the quirky side. You get a panoramic roof as standard fare, but it's fixed. So not quite an irk because you do get a lot of light that comes in, but I would rather have a single panel sunroof that opens and gets that air in here as opposed to something that's fixed. But it's personal preference, but I find it a little on the quirky side. I'd mentioned this in my NX Hybrid review from last week, but the blend of modern technology and not old school, but I guess classic technology is nicely done here. So a 12.3-inch infotainment screen that's so easy to use and highly responsive, paired with physical HVAC controls. Physical controls for brightening or dimming your instrument cluster, as well as a physical button to reset your odometer, is paired with also a 12.3-inch digital instrument cluster. On the Irks side of things, I really struggled with this. And the way I do it is I pick up the car on Monday, I drive it for 5 days, sometimes 6 before I do the review. And reviews are done on either Saturdays or Sundays to give me as much seat time as possible. And I can't really find anything that really bothers me about the Crown. And for what it is and what it does and what it's set out to be, which is an upscale sedan, there's really nothing wrong with it. And if I am looking for an Irk, sure, I'd like a little more headroom in the rear seat, but that sloping roofline will do that to any vehicle. It's not just the Crown. But everything works as it should. It's designed really well. The inputs are really simple, drives well, lots of power. It comes pretty loaded out of the box, even with the lower output one, the Limited as opposed to the Platinum. So it's not that it's a perfect car and I'm giving it 10 out of 10, but it's more of the perspective being this car has done everything it's been designed to do and set out to do, and it's really hard to find any flaws with it. On the nitpicking side, the gear selector is a little peculiar because it's that return to center style. So whether you put it in reverse or neutral or drive, the shift lever or the little knob stays in place. Let's get wrapped up with pricing and competition. So the Limited lower output Toyota Crown has a Canadian MSRP of $54,937. This top trim Platinum has an MSRP of $64,370. A difference of $9,433. And the bulk of that is the higher output engine and the rear wheel steering and a few other features and benefits. So I don't know which one I would take. If I was told you have to get a Toyota Crown and drive it for at least 1 year, I think if I was to make a decision right now, I would go for the Limited. I'm big on fuel savings, and with such a big difference between the two, 1.9 liters per 100 kilometers over the span of a year, and I just don't need that extra power. I don't want it. I don't have anywhere to open this up and use it. So that's what my take is on that. Let me know what yours would be. On the competition side, the two immediate ones are the Lexus ES 300 Hybrid. Canadian MSRP for that is $56,014, so a touch over the limited, but pretty far away from the top trim Platinum. And then I count the Crown Signia, which is a wagon. I don't care what Toyota says about it being an SUV. It's a wagon, and I love it. I had it earlier this year, and out of the three, the limited Platinum for the sedans and the Signia, 8 days a week. That's just how it's going to be for me. Pricing for that in Canadian MSRP figures comes in at $57,450. So again, right between the limited and the Platinum. And for reference, the Crown Signia runs off a 2.5 liter four-cylinder engine, 240 horsepower, 6.2 liters per 100 kilometers on the consumption scale, which is pretty good. And you got a lot more cargo space. You got 430 liters here versus 702 liters in the wagon SUV, sorry, Toyota. It's a wagon. So that's going to wrap it up. Let me know which one you would take out of, let's say, I want two answers. Let me know if you would take the limited low output or the Platinum high output. And then let me know between these four, which one you'd take. The low output sedan, high output sedan, Crown Signia wagon / SUV, or the Lexus ES 300 Hybrid. If you have any questions on the 2026 Toyota Crown sedan, let me know in the comments. I'm always happy to hear from you, and I'm always happy to engage in respectful conversations online. I invite you to join the Modern Motoring social media platforms. We are on all of the major ones. And finally, as usual, without you, there is no Modern Motoring. So I thank you, I appreciate you, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.